Hey everybody, this is Bart Kemp. It's time for talk number 2 with Uncle Malcolm. We're going to talk loosely, once again, totally unprepared about the archives, his archives, maybe some other archives. We're here at Malcolm Blount's house. It's August 25th. Let's begin talk number 2. Malcolm, thanks for giving us the time again to talk to us. So why don't we just start off, we ended roughly with the files, that many files have been lost, and we also discussed that other people are more engaged in reproducing paper copies into digital ones and have them put online as such. We know that Rex Bradford, for instance, is very active in that.
Yep.
He is now also cooperating with the ARC. The guys from Project JFK, they do the same thing as such as well. Even though there's a fair bit of lost material that we know of, then there are, of course, there are the things that we don't know of.
Again, this is Donald Rumsfeld.
You don't know what you don't know.
Knowns, unknown knowns.
Still, there is an enormous lot of material that's actually publicly available. Even though when I have Joe Back saying to me that half of the files, half of the riffs haven't been released as such, which is just even more disconcerting in the fact that only half of the material is available online as such. So
that was really, and continues to bother me, that you found so much material which should be online is not online. It's not available. That's concerning, really.
yeah, well, especially after that much of a rook in the early 90s, 30 years ago, about it and get a JFK Act together, which then is only enacted upon for around 50% as such. The again, what I mentioned in the first talk is that the so-called not online phrase I use by writing it on the riff sheets themselves, it is all across the board. Like, it doesn't matter whether you're talking about stuff from the HSCA or the Rockefeller Commission or the Church Committee or the FBI. I mean, percentage-wise, maybe certain things are higher than others, but if, like I said, across the board, in every section of law enforcement agency or a intelligence agency or a commission as such, there are missing documents. There is just, well, the only thing that I know of which is well represented, and I have absolutely no idea why that is the Cubans and the cryptonyms and the so-called plans that were all in place and the documents that have been released as such. In your collection, for instance, I've only found like a handful of documents that weren't online from the CIA and the, let's say, JM Wave or different cryptonyms as such. There wasn't a lot. So for some reason, the CIA wasn't very bothered about giving all that away to the public and for people to look, because there is a ton. I don't know, maybe Rex Bradford can tell me this one day, but especially over the last 2 or 3 years, the Mary Farrell website, for instance, has done a lot of scanning and publishing and so forth. So, what is, we spoke about, say, missing documents like the Marine Buddies thing. Have you got any other examples that, have of the same caliber, or is it just from the documents that you fished out?
I think, there's, as you wade through all this stuff, I mean, when I went through the church committee stuff, it was apparent that quite a lot of stuff was missing. Crucial stuff was missing. Particularly the Oswald interaction with customs in New Orleans. All that essential stuff is missing from the church files. It's not accidental. You're not just getting one; you're getting several. And then when you get the interviews with the customs and INS officials, what I termed as the debriefs after they finished testifying to the church committee, they went back to the Department of Justice and then turned 180 degrees. They suddenly got amnesia. You know, they couldn't remember anything. So, I mean, that's par for the course, because obviously their careers are online, you know. This is national security.
Don't rock the boat.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, that stuff bothered me with the church committee, and it wasn't until I went to the review board files that I understood what we needed to get from the government, and it is from the government, because it would be termed House stuff. House, you know, the Senate stuff. So you want the Senate Subcommittee on Intelligence, you want their index of everything that came in. There's the Assassinations Record Review Board found there were 8-binder index of everything that came in. An 8-binder index. Well, we haven't seen that. I mean, even in redacted form, we haven't seen that. And oh yeah, they could argue the fact that it's not relevant, because a lot
NBR.
because a lot of the stuff in there would be nothing to do with the JFK assassination. In that 8-binder, but a hell of a lot of it would be. So, I mean, that's something that researchers could do with seeing, because we get some idea of, for whatever reason, I mean, we get some idea of what we lost.
Yeah, because it's the same thing with all these lists from the ARB with regards to FBI files, with regard, you know, all these so-called finders aids and so forth. You've done a fair chunk, I have to say. Some of them are old. How can that be translated into to use that information in the modern age? In this digital age? How do we do that?
That's very difficult. Short of actually going to the National Archives and wading through this stuff, like Clayton Ogilvie. I mean, Clay was doing it when I was there. I mean, he was doing it day after day, a bit like yourself, day after day, week after week, with headphones on and music playing, and then just going through the FBI field office files. But because it's so immense, it's so huge, you know, for a person to try and get through that stuff is so difficult. It really is difficult. You know, the sheer quantity.
Sure. Sounds as if
So
you need a
just-
team.
Hundreds of
amazing.
boxes.
Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of FBI field office files. Yeah, hundreds. And there was a fair bit of destruction late on. Even when the review board was sitting, they were destroying files. They destroyed Sergio Acacia Smith's files, FBI files from Houston. They were destroyed in '95, I think, either '94 or '95, as the review board was sitting. So that's the sort of thing you have to contend with. You know.
Another thing that was public around that same year was the Secret Service files. You've got a fair bit of this stuff.
Oh God!
You've
Don't
got
talk to
some
me
really
about
good
that.
HSCA interviews that are really graphic as well, that like I'd never heard of. Vince did, but I forgot about it, and I didn't, sure as heck didn't read them. We'll read about it in his book. But anyway, I was just reading some of these interviews, and some of them are extremely graphic about the state of Kennedy's face and his body when he was in the limousine on the way back, on the way to Parkland, and after that when he was taken out.
But you're talking about more file destruction there too at the Secret Service.
Well, that's what I was going to get to, because the ARB basically said, show us these files, blah, 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 and then they destroyed them. I mean, exactly, precisely.
But they destroyed in '66. They destroyed early on 7 filing cabinets full of JFK related stuff. It was culled by a guy called James Mastrovito, a Secret Service agent called James Mastrovito. He did all that. So what on earth we must have lost there, I just don't know. I mean, it's just like,
Yeah.
it's just endless. I mean, when you go to, you know, there are sort of lots of other bits and pieces that you can actually look at of when it comes to essentials, in a way. Essentials, which I've tried to mention to Rex Redford and to Alan Dale. One of the real essentials with the House Select Committee on Assassinations is to get to their document register, which is 3 boxes. You must get to that, because the last time I looked through that, that was full of redactions. You know, and why are they redacting a document register? This is really weird. Very strange.
Only if you got something to hide.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not talking about redactions like, I'm talking redactions like this, full page redactions.
Big black
I mean,
box.
it's just nuts. And you know, that's an essential, obviously an essential thing to get declassified, to get released, because then we'll know exactly what came in and what was registered, the communications, the correspondence, everything that's been logged into the House Select Committee is in those document registers. But we don't have it. We have an incomplete, redacted document register. So these are things, long before you get to this idea about let's release this document or that document, let's get to the actual nitty-gritty of a log of documents which has been redacted. You know, that's what we need to get to, things like that, I think. And, you know, the 8-binder index, would be lovely if we could get that, you know. But, I mean, this stuff is endless.
Yeah, that's the thing. With what we've got already, there's just a magnificent amount of material present already.
Sure.
I mean, when you think about it, well, that could be doubled up. Just, I'm already flabbergasted and my mind is boggling for the fact that how much stuff there actually is already for what we can look at. And the material as such that is available, and also the material that, for instance, isn't online, but we know the RIF number and the subject of as well. So that's one of the things I find the weirdest, especially things that have, let's say, released in full and then there's still no trace of it anywhere online as such. You'd expect the archives to have it, whereas out of my experience, Mary Farrell has the most documents out of everything. More than the archives, whereas the archives see actually everything online, and they don't. It's the Mary Farrell website that has all this stuff as such. And the Black Vault did an all right job as well, but they were more focused on.
Yeah, I was very pleased with the stuff you sent me, which I think was the links, which I thought were fantastic. I found a lot of useful stuff in there for me. I mean, this is, as you would say, spook stuff.
Yeah, but I know. But the thing is that you know, from your gatherings, there are many where you just only have the riff sheet. So when I check the riff sheet, which I've now been doing for more than a year now, every riff number goes through, and if it's online, I will send you the link to the entire document, because then at least you can read that and go, oh yeah, I got that back then, blah blah blah. Oh, now here's the whole document. So it's for completeness reasoning. And I also, like I said as well, and Alan made mention of this, I found about half a dozen documents of which the redactions were applied afterwards in your documents instead of before, which is highly unusual. That's definitely a very strange one.
Yeah, I mean, if you go back to the really old stuff, which was supposedly, you know, Warren Commission stuff, all the outstanding Warren Commission documents were supposed to be interfiled, released, and put into the Warren Commission boxes manually between 2004 and I think 2006. But there's again, you get crucial documents and crucial correspondence missing. And the stuff I was particularly interested in, That's all missing, and that's the correspondence with the security office guy at CIA and David Slawson. Can't find that at all. And you go to the archivists and they say, oh well, this is what we got. So, that's it. So there's been an editing process along the way.
I mean, that's another thing, because for me the most clearest example of an editing process in place is the Dallas files, the municipal archive files, because what you've got is in part different, or better yet, isn't available through because here's the thing.
Really?
Yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah, because the Dallas police only released their police files, okay? So they had this on this website that lasted until a couple of years ago. It was from the 90s. It was a really simple website with a PDF as a index. Mm-hmm. And then there were about 15 boxes with loads of copies of Goswells or Fritz or you name it was in there. That was the Dallas police. Then the University of Texas gets hold of this stuff, but also at the same time stuff from the Dallas Municipal Archives. And then I found things through your folders where I went, I have absolutely no knowledge of this. And I've been through those websites, like picture after picture, statement after statement, just going through it and just go click, click, click. Oh, this is interesting. Yeah, I get this. And there was just handfuls of stuff that I just went, well, that's not, that I have never seen before. And that's especially with handwritten statements. Mm-hmm. Because I've sent you also things where I was like, I have absolutely no idea. I know this is Dallas police, but I don't understand the connection between this and this, and so that's why I just email you and trying to find out. But there's absolutely no trace or track of that from other websites before when I did the search as such. That was also mainly the reason for me just to stick around and do all this, because there was so much stuff that was related to Dallas that I could not find in a regular way as such, because also when the documents were released in 17 and 18, there were barely any descriptions. This is why the Black Vault came into action, because the archives just released all these documents and there's no object character recognition present, which means when you do a search, you can find a word in that particular document in an electronic way. So the Black Vault downloaded all the documents from the archives and they put them through the OCR process. So you had an actual searchable trove of records to go through, whereas the archive just didn't give it to us. It's just typical, with all the other stuff, and you can just like say, well, you can add that on, because it's just the fact that they just put minimal effort in the release of that, whether they had access to these things for years and they've been working on it for years and they've kept delaying it for years on whatever reasons they could find through whatever agency, and then when they release it, it's just like, and I just had to open them one after another and just to look at them, and I'm like,
painful. This
is stupid and an absolute waste of my time. But I also found treasures. I mean, I found the Hoover document where they basically wanted to nail Oswald to the cross, which came from Katzenbach earlier, and I found out when Earl Cabell was an asset for the agency, and Bill Decker was an FBI asset as well, which is not a big deal, but it's nice to read that black and white. But other things like autopsy, the fingerprints of Oswald as well. That was a brilliant document. They didn't have any latent fingerprints of Oswald on file. I was like, you assholes, pardon the language. But I just, when I read that was just absolutely shocking. And let's talk about, you talk about almost everything in your archive. So whether it's the ARB, military intelligence, you go to Miami, Cuba, and so forth, you go to New Orleans, you go to obviously Dallas, and it's many sub chapters, Sylvia Odio, you name it. The only thing I missed a little bit, and although you did get bits, for instance, those two beautiful pictures of Alpha 66, why don't we talk a bit about that period? The presence of the Cuban exiles in Dallas itself.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about Harlandale Avenue, for instance, sightings, possible sightings of Oswald, this, that, and the other. But it wasn't as prominent as New Orleans was, wasn't it?
No, it doesn't seem to have been as prominent as New Orleans, and that always puzzled me. I think, especially with the.
So the question is actually, why wasn't it really properly investigated in Dallas, and the affiliations in between Dallas and New Orleans, the individuals, and especially, that picture. I think David Joseph told me as well. There's a guy in the background that looks like Oswald.
Yeah.
There's it's just another prayer man debate, because the prayer man's a little bit more. It's got a little bit more evidence to back up. But that picture, you just look at it and you go, yeah, that could be Lee Oswald in the background.
But you sent me a document from an FBI informant, a Cuban. And in that document, I think it was on page 3, the guy mentions the number of photographs that he acquired. And those two were 2 of the photographs. He mentions 5 photographs.
The hunt is on.
So where are the other 3? They're not in the files. If they were in the files, they would have already copied them.
You got those from the archives?
Yeah. They came out the FBI Dallas files.
How, for someone that doesn't know much about this whole thing, this whole Cuban thing, how does this relate, like Miami, New Orleans, Dallas? I mean, of course, yeah, there's affiliations, this, that, and the other, but how do I see this? How do I compare that?
You could see it as a distraction. Or you could see it as something significant. I mean, it just depends on what position you take. I mean, you see some of the principles. Some of the people that we're interested in, like Antonio Veciana. Being in Dallas, so that's interesting. And then
I
you
don't
get
believe
the other people in New Orleans, like Sergio Smith.
Yeah.
I think people like that. It was allegedly found with plans of the sewer system, in his home, the sewer system in Dealey Plaza. I mean, that's what you do when you're a Cuban exile. You run around with plans of sewer systems.
When did they find that? During the Garrison investigation?
I got a feeling I got that in the Dallas police files, but I'm not sure what year it was, because they went on beyond 64, if you remember. I mean, actually, I still had some of those files. They had some of the stuff related to an interest in the assassination, right up until the Ricky White story. That was in the files. That was in DMARC, the Dallas Municipal Archives, in their police archives. So you could get that stuff. Even the later stuff was in there, not just the early stuff, but the later stuff as well. And I was always unsure about just how much they got, because Paul McCarran, Detective Paul McCarran, talks about filing cabinets elsewhere. Again, we just don't know how many documents went sideways in all this process.
Well, there's the story that they find the Warren Commission files in some
66.
navy yard or something like in the middle
They
of
found it at the what they called the naval weapons plant,
naval weapons plants.
which was a building which the Warren Commission occupied. Okay,
Gotcha.
so it's not like it's in some sort of like
What the hell does it do here?
rockets,
Okay.
rockets in a building. It's like a proper building in DC, which I've been to. I actually went to that building, and but 2 years after, they found these filing cabinets, and then they were being disposed of Alfreda Goldberg, and she was really one feisty lady. She queried everything, questioned everything. She was one of the few people that actually did a job for the Warren Commission. Typical lady, you know. They wouldn't. She wouldn't let go, and she questioned everything. So her files were good, and coincidentally, of course, they didn't show up until.
Of course, they'll disappear. It hit the mark too many times.
It wasn't until they were going to go to a salvage that somebody realised that these filing cabinets were locked and opened up and found these files marked top secret. So.
Speaking of Warren Commission files, I also mentioned the so-called, what's it called, an accession ticket, the gold ticket to go
Accession.
Accession ticket.
Accession number.
Accession number.
Yeah.
These are the files that were shipped from Dallas to Washington in '67.
It came in '65. Four boxes in April '65.
So, but they were basically all the transcripts of all the interviews the Warren Commission did in Dallas.
They sent up the unedited depositions, and they also sent with that the material that they extracted from those pieces of testimony, which were then labelled by the Dallas attorneys as no good testimony. They call it, that's what the term they used, no good testimony. In other words, stuff which they dragged out of. And some of it is actually can still be found. It's in Record Group 118.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Just a few scraps, not a lot.
But yes, shouldn't the accession ticket point to those? Where
They should do, but you know.
They don't, because you've tried several times to use that ticket. That ticket, as you mentioned in the
accession number,
it's a gold ticket.
You know, from a very nice, helpful archivist. Initially said no problem. 3 hours later, it suddenly became a problem. They couldn't be found from that accession number. I can't find the accession number. So
yeah, but for the viewers at home, basically, it's a gold ticket. It allows you.
It's exactly the same.
It tells you where it is. That's what it actually does.
If you go to CIA with a job number, I had this. Again, I had it a couple of years ago, 3 years ago, when I had a CIA job number for the minutes for the special group, you know,
Special
job
Group
number,
13,
and it was for Joan Mellon. She wanted the minutes of the 67 7-day war, 6-day war,
6-day war
in '67, and I had the job number. The CIA job number, which is the accession number. And initially CIA said, okay, fine, but it'll take a bit of time. Well, that in a year later, that became, we can't find anything relating to that job number as far as the special group minutes for the 6-day war.
That must be very sensitive, that document.
Oh, I think it is super sensitive.
I think so too.
because you got
There's certain things
it's
that
a
I don't
USS.
want people to know, especially about something
It's
like
that ship that got
The Liberty.
Liberty. Yeah.
USS Liberty.
Yeah, Joe Mellon wrote about that, did you? Yeah. So, it's HSCA itself, I found quite a few interviews appear in your documents. You didn't have the riff sheet, but then I started looking by putting the person and the HSCA in the search engines and stuff like that. And again, a lot of them are just nowhere to be found and stuff like that. What surprised me most was, which I'm going to write about soon, a little piece, is Hostie's a so-called staff interview of Jim Hostie of the HSCA. I'm absolutely mind-boggled by the fact that how many interviews Hostie actually did on his work with the Dallas police and that day. For those that don't know, there's a church committee interview. That's 3 days. 3 days of interviewing, 550 pages in total. And then I found an 82-page document of which there's absolutely no trace of online. And again, that's a similar interview in that vein as well. I'm always really elated when I find stuff. I mean, for myself, of course, when I find stuff that I can add to my work, of course, is really awesome, because I just see it as another nail that's handed to me, so I can hammer the coffin firmly shut for anyone who wants to argue against it as such.
What's your opinion on Hostie? Because it always seemed to me, right at the end, that like his notes ended up in the National Archives.
Yeah, I think that, I mean, this is pure speculation from my side, but I think he left them in deliberately. That's what I think. And his other notes, it is just because this came out of a folder that was just called Hostie Notes, and there was probably about 75 to 100 pages of it, photocopied, not great quality. I found the so-called Hostie note that I found in Feb 2019. I found a better quality copy of it. So also in another folder of yours, loose from everything else. So
Very typical.
But that was different, because somebody must have seen the significance of that document, because it was kept separate. Mm. And what was in the pile of the 70 to 100 pages was also notes from his notebook, because the actual note is made on DPD affidavit paper on the back of it. And the beauty of that is actually also in Hostie's book. He talks about it. He says, I had a block of blank DVD affidavit paper, and what he did was wrote on the back, and he made lists. So that and the signature, the handwriting comparison, made it pretty easy and straightforward to see that the notes by Hostie. Hostie was a scapegoat as much as Oswald was. He was sent to Kansas City as a punishment, but apparently during an interview with William Malloy said that he enjoyed it. He just didn't say anything about it because it was meant to be a demotion and so forth. And he just kept stum, allegedly. I know that he opened his mouth way too quick when he met Jack Revel in the basement. When you met Revel in the basement, he said something along those lines. But what a lot of people don't know, and this I found also on your notes, there are scribbles of some kind of an interrogation, questioning, and it states that Revel, Jack Revel of the Criminal Intelligence Division of the DPD, and Hostie had what the Germans say, an Auseinandersetzung, which is a rook, basically. They had a massive argument the day before Friday, November the 22nd. Mm. So that could make sense with the fact that Revel stitched Hostie up, because the first thing he did was go to Pat Ganaway, his boss, the captain of the Criminal Intelligence Division, and say, I've got this going on. Hostie said this. Great, make a report about that right away now. That would stitch the FBI up right there and then. That whole thing was short-lived. That together with Curry was blabbing all the time. So Hoover was just like, tell Curry to shut up because he talks way too much to the national media and so forth. And
they had a hard time with it when he testified to the Warren Commission, stopping him.
Yeah, and on top of that, they basically punished the DPD and did not assist, the FBI did not assist the Dallas police with research and other interrogations techniques and so
There was
forth.
no
Schooling.
cooperation.
There was zero cooperation
shut off.
not until Curry had resigned and was gone, and that took another 3 or so years. So the feds just punished them, and I think it was Clyde Tolson. I've got a document of Tolson who basically just went like, see you later. This lot, we're not giving them anything anymore until Curry is gone. Hosty himself is incredibly valuable for me because he spoke so often about the interrogations. Fritz didn't want to talk about it. We know that Hosty is the only one that took notes during the interrogation, that first interrogation, because he was only there. Hosty was the guy with the file on Oswald. Yet it was Bookout, who was only the liaison between Dallas police and FBI, who was there during interrogations 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And from what you read from Hosty, Hosty's actually probably the most honest person of all of them in that whole bunch when he talks about.
I was reading his obituary the other night. Of all things, that's what I do at 3 o'clock in the morning. Read Hosty's obituary.
Like you do.
Yeah, it's quite interesting.
I just found, because you've got the Dallas police that acts like a clique and sticks together. The people that were involved with that interrogation. So then you start to look into the FBI, for which you've got Hosty, you've got Bookout, you've got Clements. Those 3 were at least in verbal contact with Oswald. Then you've got the Secret Service, Thomas Kelly. Thomas Kelly didn't arrive until just before the midnight press conference, so he wasn't there during the day on the Saturday, but he was there on the Friday. He was there on the Saturday and on the Sunday. And there are others that have been there, but in what capacity and how much they asked, that is still unbeknownst to me. But Hosty just got hung out to dry. The whole thing with the mentioning of Mexico City, that was another thing. This gets played out as, before he goes to Dallas police, he sees the file, there's something stuck on the file of Oswald about Mexico City, so he starts talking about it. Hosty turns it into a real important thing, which I don't think it was, because Oswald didn't answer the question really, and on top of that, Fritz redirected the direction of the questioning out of that zone immediately, and Hosty couldn't, because Hosty was actually asking through Fritz, so he would say, ask him why he was when he was in Mexico City, but ask him this, ask him that. He couldn't talk to him direct because apparently because Hosty had accosted Marina Oswald. Oswald wasn't really in the mood to talk to him as such. Just after basically that question was more or less ignored, the interrogations were broken up because first of all, Forrest Source was going to talk to him for about 5 or 10 minutes, and then he was straight off to the hysterical Helen Markham
Utter screwball.
Just that is one of the worst lineups ever. I thought also this week in one of your documents that I scanned in last week, William Scoggins, the other cab driver, what a klutz that guy is, because he says in a document on the 25th, 3 days after he allegedly picked him out, said that he couldn't recognize him at all from the picture that he saw at all. Just basically disqualified himself as a witness right there and then. I'm just thinking, and then obviously you've got the other cab driver.
Well, there were major problems, really. Oswald should never have survived. He should have been wiped out.
They had to, because
he survived too long, and there were too many questions.
Yeah, but there were already too many questions, and lawyers getting involved, and people looking into it and going, "What's going on here?" And then this guy gets killed just like that in the basement. Yeah. And what's the first thing they say? The case is moot now. That's what Wade said right after. It's moved now. We're not investigating anymore. It's done. The killer is done.
Yeah.
You know?
You go home.
Yeah. But I mean, that's the beauty of your archive. Your archive showed a lot of material in Dallas that I, nor many, many others, knew of. And the same goes for New Orleans. You know.
But to plug the gap, I mean, there were so many different things coming in. The thing I've never got to, which I wanted to get to, really was the Western Union stuff, because they were frantic. The FBI were frantic trying to close that down. The fact that Oswald had received money, Western Union checks. They try, I forget the name of the guy.
Yeah, I've got a few bits on that, on the Western Union thing.
He wouldn't change his statement. He kept going and he kept trying to revamp the statement, but he made it. He said that, and stuck to it, that the fact that Oswald received quite regular payments through Western Union, and that was a massive hole that they were trying to plug. The FBI and the Warren Commission, they're both trying to do the same thing, try to keep that one. But there's so many holes to plug. There's so many different things that just didn't fit with Oswald. We talked about this guy in Canada that did the FPCC stuff. When you've got a letter to Oswald in July of '62. To Oswald in July of '62 for the fair play for Cuba. That's like a year too early. That's not what the Warren Commission is telling us. It's not what anybody else is telling us. Because somebody screwed up. The cover story got away from people. Just didn't get it right. The timing was all wrong. It's fascinating, really. I mean, I think it just demonstrates there's just so many. I called them early on. I used to call them choke points. The stuff, the whole Oswald trip, to Russia is like full of holes.
It's beautiful.
Full of holes.
In fact, I find it. I had no interest in it whatsoever, and then all of a sudden there's a subterfuge of material, because I have to say. I mean, if someone says like, well, there's a bit of that. No, there's not. There's loads on his passport. There's loads on Snyder. There's loads on the embassy, on the Department of State. The shenanigans of getting back, traveling back, getting a loan, this, that, and the other. There was a lot of upheaval during the JFK movie about Oswald just getting a ticket and just being able to go home as such, blah, blah, blah. Well, first of all, according to the documentation that you've got, there was nothing in place as a procedure in basically punishing someone for actually going to abroad to Russia, and basically then there's a lot of paperwork that says Oswald renounced or wanted to renounce his U.S. citizenship, and there is nothing that can make that hard at any time whatsoever that he actually said that in the embassy. But yet every other organization that gets the info from the Department of State just repeats it, just like a parrot, and just like where there is absolutely nothing to support this as such. And Snyder being a CIA asset, that's a really interesting aspect as well of himself. Then the Minsk thing, I scanned some things in, just as a whole package. The whole Russia thing, Webster, of course. Yeah,
that's a big one.
Exactly, but that's just one subfolder of basically the whole Russia episode, and it's massive.
But just in simple terms, if you just to deconstruct it and make it less complicated, you just look at Webster's CIA file, look at the disseminations, the number of documents that came in from the State Department, they all went the normal way, the normal traffic. Oswald stuff comes in, it just goes. 99% of it goes to the security office. That's like, that tells you something's wrong right away. Absolutely. That's pre-knowledge. To get an altered dissemination you have to fill up a form which is a 1604 CIA form. You have to fill a 1604 form up, asking for a change in dissemination. You know, because the normal dissemination process was in place, which is what happened to Webster, what happened to Riccardelli, what happened to all these other people. It just goes normal. With Oswald, it doesn't go normal. It goes to the security office. There was pre-knowledge of Oswald's trip to the Soviet Union.
That's what you told to Pete Bagley back then.
Yeah.
And that convinced him also that he was a willing defector.
Well, I've been talking to him for months about that, and you know, and then we actually got around to doing it, and then there was this big, there was a silence, and then you know the question, you're like, you know, okay, was he witted or unwitted? Which I thought wasn't the question I expected coming back from him, you know, and that's what I said to him. I said, if you can't ask me that question, how would I know? I don't know. And then he got a little bit excited, you know, you have to know, you know. And so I guessed, unwitted. And he said, oh, no. I shook his head, oh, no. You'd have to be witted. He said, which is quite an interesting dialogue. You know?
We will talk about Pete Bagley and Yuri Nosenko in great detail. What I can say is that the Nosenko documents, a lot of Nosenko documents have been scanned in and will be presented at the first opening of the archives, which will happen in Assassination Weekend in November 2020. And
that's last year.
Sorry?
That's last year.
This year. Oh, sorry, 2021. Thank you for the correction. Thank you. Basically, what will happen is that there's a release of about 140,000 maybe, or maybe 150,000 pages that will be all structured and ready in folders as such, with a working search engine, and for people to access. And then for the next year, next 12 months, files will be added in a weekly fashion, with hundreds of documents every week until I'm done, which will hopefully be around
Christmas
this
2029.
Yeah. It will be probably around this time.
Get some more releases then.
Yeah. It'll be around this year, next year. Yeah, this time next year. Yeah, roughly. Maybe a little bit later, but that will be it. So there's plenty to come. Plenty of spook stuff and plenty of other old stuff. But mostly will be in the archive of this section is Malcolm's old stuff and Malcolm's Cuban stuff. Question: when you were doing your Cuban days, which must have been around the millennium, wasn't it? Like late 90s, early 2000s, because
I think sort of from the middle of 97, 98, 99, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because so you flowed over from the Armstrong Oswald research into Miami.
Yeah, drifted into because I met up with Gordon Winslow in Miami with tremendous archive, tremendous stuff, and tremendous knowledge on the Cuban angle. And he was like an interested, connected, helpful guy. Did a lot for us.
What's happening to that archive?
He sold it.
Really?
Yeah.
To whom?
We don't know.
A collector has got hold of it again. So that we might as well put it in a shed and throw away the key, because nobody gets to see it. That's the way it goes. The collector buys it, and then that's it.
Again, he offered it to me. I mean, I could have bought it. But, I think
that's
it was
even more disconcerting.
It was after the Harry thing, and I thought, oh God, do I want another collection?
This hurts even more now. Gosh. Did anyone else offer their archives to you? Oh God. Did you do a lot of interviews in that time when you were in Miami as such? Did you? Because I've got pictures of those meetings where you were present.
Yeah, we had people, we had guests at different times, I think. Hemming was the main guest, Jerry Hemming. He used to turn up most times. And that was always entertaining. You know, you'd have to sort of use, you know, your BS filter and try and work out
what's right and what's wrong.
right and what's wrong. I mean, he knew a lot, but then he tended to disguise a lot as well. You know,
Can't give it away.
He was better, like a lot of people that have been involved in certain things, if you were able to push a document towards him. You know, if you're able to just show him something that had been released which related to what the subject you wanted
involved
to discuss, then he was okay. He was better.
Well, it's harder to deny. That's the whole beauty of it. I mean, that's what Jeff Morley did together with John Newman.
Yeah. I think that's the best way. I mean,
it's the only way, because
it's one of my regrets. You know, that I never did it earlier, but I was too influenced by other people saying that you shouldn't be involved with FBI people, you shouldn't be involved with CIA people, you shouldn't talk to these people. But really,
why not?
Yeah, I think.
The thing is, always something valuable comes out of it. That's the thing. It may be for 80-90% may just complete hogwash. But at the same time, there may be a little nugget in there. You know, I'm going back to Aussie gold hunters now, but you know, same thing. Always moaning about something not getting it, and then all of a sudden, in this massive patch of land, they find a nugget of gold that's as big as a fist. So it's like, you know, come on. And that's the thing. Sometimes you have to go through it. At least have tried it, because then you can just say, like, well, I can eliminate it because I did talk to that person and I didn't get anything out of him. So, but at least I did it as such.
Yeah, I mean, I think I had a good friend in Nashville, Stan Clark, who used to live in Dallas. The late Stan Clark, and Stan was a bit like yourself. He was focused only on Dallas, only on the witnesses, only on the Dallas police. Was his. He didn't go further than that.
I want his archive. It's probably put with the trash, like many other archives before that.
It was supposed to be going to the Irving Public Library, but they couldn't. And they knew that Stan had died, but they received no information about his archive, which he actually absolutely, because I was with him when he made the arrangements with the Irving Public Library to take it. So you would think there would be some legal document somewhere. I mean, it was a very sudden death, I think, and it was a heart attack. So, you know, it's not like it was an illness like cancer or something like that. It was gone, you know. And the closest relative was his brother, and I'm not sure he never got on with his brother at all. So what happened there, God only knows. I don't know.
Hope for the best, but fear the worst. And it's gone.
But have you ever checked in with the Irving Public Library? Did it reach there? I mean, that would be. I mean, if we were allowed to fly, Bart, and as far away from me as Dallas and all that stuff is to the investigation, the early days, I would make a point of going over and getting copies of them. Because Stan was so good, and he was absolutely meticulous. So if he interviewed somebody, a Dallas cop or a witness, it was there. It was all done.
So I need to call the Irving Library and see if they've got anything.
Yeah.
Alright, that's no problem. I can do that tomorrow. Find out. Yes.
I mean, and it was a massive collection of stuff. He just knew everybody. Stan knew everybody. If you went to Dallas and you wanted a witness,
call them up, get access.
Yeah,
a trusted person.
Yeah.
I might ask G. Gary Shaw as well, see what he knows. He knows a fair bit about the whole Dallas shenanigans and all that as well.
He probably would have good knowledge of the early days too, Gary.
Yeah. No, he's really thankful for the files I'm sending him on Ruby. He does thank me all the time because, of course, there'll be bits that he already knows of, but I must have piqued his interest because, he's grateful for all the material that I sent.
He's done a lot of work. Gary's done a lot of work.
Yeah, he's been on it all those years. So I hope he's going to do a follow-up to his book. You know. Okay, well, let's keep it at this for now. Thanks, everybody. We'll do another talk next month. See what happens. We'll see if we can get some detail to talk about for a change. So,
Next time we'll talk about Boris Johnson.
No. Boris didn't shoot JFK. So, anyway, thanks all, and we'll see you in the next month. Ciao.
Ciao.